Hi, my name is Sylvia and I'm an English teacher. I'm going to be showing you today how to understand the past. I'm going to talk about different types of tenses, and this will be the past perfect simple, the past continuous, and the past perfect continuous. We're going to start with the past perfect simple. There is a formula that helps you understand how to make this tense easier and the way you're talking and the way you're doing it in sentences, dialogues, or even read it in texts. This formula is with the word had plus the main verb that it's going to be in a past participle form. I'm going to show you a chart that it's going to give you some examples on how to use this. If you're going to do the past perfect simple, you can use affirmatives like, for example, everyone had spoken. Questions like, why had they left? And the negative form will be, they hadn't eaten. As you see in this little drawing, the past perfect is an action that happened before a key point. So it kept happening, but it's before the present and before the key point. Now, when are we going to use this tense? First, we can use it in a sequence of events, in something that took place and finished before something else in the past. For example, it had stopped raining, so they didn't bother to put the car away. Clauses are going to be connected by a conjunction, like what, and, that, because, and so. Also, it is used to avoid confusion or ambiguity. For example, they had finished eating when I got there. It's going to be expressed during some confusion actions that they must be clear. State verbs. There are some verbs and a list of verbs that are used instead of the past perfect continuous. They belong to a group that it is avoided used in continuous forms. This list of verbs is included in your reference book. Another way to use this tense is in the narrative. You use it to describe the background, to introduce the events that happened before the main narrative, and to have some manner on it. As you can see in this example, you have the formula and the action that is happening. What have you done in your life before you appeared here? Didn't you read my tweets? The next tense I'm going to be talking about is the past continuous. Again, we have the formula. In this case, we have the verb to be in past. We're going to use the words was or were, plus the main verb, plus the ing form. Now in this chart again, you're going to see how to use it. The affirmative way would be, they were dancing. The question way would be, why was she talking? And the negative, I wasn't concentrating. Again, as you can see in this diagram, the action starts in the past, stays until a key point, and then it stops before the present. Let's see when we're going to use this tense. Again, we can use it in a sequence of events, but in this case, it's going to be used to describe something that began before a particular point in the past and it's still in process at that point. For example, I was still working at 6 o'clock. Also, when the action stopped at the key point in the past, you're going to use this tense. For example, he was working at his computer when the power cut occurred. The power cut was before the present, but the action stopped at the key point. You cannot use your computer when you don't have power, right? Another use of this tense is when you have complete periods of time. You could say that this is used when there is a description of events that are extended across complete periods of time. For example, all day, the whole lesson, every minute of the journey. For example, we're slaving away from morn to night. Another use is going to be the narrative. It is used to set the scene for events which are taking place. You can see this tense used in this example. He was texting while flying. The action was before the key point that stopped the action. It's pretty sad how Santa Claus had to stop texting because he crashed, right? The next tense I'm going to be talking about is the past perfect continuous. Again, we have a formula for it so you can identify it easier. You have the word had, the word been, plus the main verb, plus the ing form. Again, we're going to see the chart and you're going to see how to use it. In the affirmative way, it could be used like this. They had been losing a lot of money. As a question, what had you been doing? And as a negative, I hadn't been working for long. If you see the diagram again, the action starts in the past, then it moves, but it stops before the key point because it's an action that kept going and going through this tiny small space and then it stops at the key point. This is the difference between the past perfect continuous and the one we saw before, that the action keeps going in this period of tense. Okay, when are we going to use it? Again, as a sequence of events, but in this case, you can use it when there is a concern with an extended or repeated event or activity which took place before a particular point in the past. For example, he had been drinking without a break for several hours when the accident happened. What happened with the accident? It made the guy stop drinking, right? So, this tense is going to explain like an extended or repeated event or activity that goes through a particular point in the past. You can see it in this example again. He's been waiting for you for 60 years. Well, hopefully this won't happen to me. Now, in this chart that was taken from the reference book, you're going to see some tenses that are going to help you to understand the new tense, okay? Which is a familiar tense. The present continuous, it's something that happens now. Now, the past continuous, it's something that kept happening through the key point, but it's not happening right now. A familiar tense could be the present perfect simple. That is an action that starts in the past, finishes in the past, and that's it, right? That the past perfect simple, in this case, it's an action that starts in the past but ends before the key point. Another familiar tense can be the present perfect continuous. It's an action that keeps going and going and going before the present. Now, the past perfect continuous is an action that goes on and on before the key point. That means that there's an action that stops it before the present. Now, I'm going to show you some online practices that you can do or you can show to your students regarding these three tenses. The first activity is related to some tenses that you will have to match with the statements on the left. In this case, it's with the past perfect continuous. Now, we're going to match whatever they're saying here with the statements on the left. They had been playing football in the mud. That means they were dirty. It had been raining. That means that the ground was wet. He had been working on it for years. That means that he was happy when it was finished. They had been driving for 10 hours, so they were very tired when they arrived. He hadn't been working at all. He got sacked. The children had been cooking, so the kitchen was a terrible mess. She had been crying again, so she had red eyes. She had been shopping, so she was carrying lots of bags. And somebody had been smoking, so it smelled of cigarettes. This is a cool way that you can use with your students so they can check their knowledge or even for yourself. Now, the second activity is a little bit easier because your kids or yourself will have to identify which verb completes the sentence properly. Now, in this case, you have the ing forms, and you just need to complete what the children are doing. So, did you hear the children? Probably they were screaming. After you guess the word, you get a shootout. You get to kick a penalty and see if you can beat the goalkeeper. So this is a fun way that your kids can learn and play at the same time. Here's another activity that you can use with your students or with yourself regarding the verb tenses. However, this one includes all the tenses in the present, in the past, and in the future. I chose this exercise because they were eating. The Jacobs were eating dinner when the storm hit their house. Every time you get a correct answer, you're gonna go to this treasure hunt and find the treasure. It's a positive way to encourage students or learners to understand the verb tenses. So, this has been my presentation regarding to the past tenses. I hope this is clear, and please let me know if you have any questions at my YouTube account. Thank you. Bye-bye.